Right, and we're live.
Always good to be.
Always good, always good. So we'll just wait a few minutes for the people who are going to join us live on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. We're glad you're with us. This is the awkward part of our broadcast where we're waiting for people to join us live on Friday night. We do it every Friday night, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. And actually, if you are joining us on Facebook and you're here now, if you want to go ahead and let us know where you're from or ask some questions in the comments. I know we have a few people join us already, so I'm going to go ahead and start officially and say, hi, my name is Johnny. I'm a believer. I struggle with alcoholism and codependency, and with me tonight.
I'm John. I'm a believer struggle with alcoholism and anxiety.
Yeah, and so this is our first Facebook Live of 2020.
And we have Alexis with us.
We do. Alexis, say hi so everybody knows you're there.
Hello.
So they don't just think we're lying. So yeah, as you come on into the comments, go ahead and leave a question in the comments after you say hello, and that way we have something to talk about rather than just whatever we end up talking about.
Right.
So
and we have going to make, not a New Year's resolution. We don't do that at Celebrate Recovery. Mm-hmm. We're going to make a New Year's commitment. Now, Johnny doesn't even know what this is yet because I just thought of it.
Yep.
In 2020,
that's a long time.
That's a lot of 20s.
Yeah.
But in the year 2020, I'll get it by about June. Mm-hmm. In the year 2020, we are going to do a hopefully better intentional job of answering more questions.
Okay.
We love to talk to you. We love to, your comments on what we say, but really we want to get your questions answered because they're important. There is no such thing as a silly question, and except the guys that answer silly questions. So mm-hmm. We are excited about the new year. We're excited. We're at Saddleback Church, and Pastor Rick has said for years and years and years that our best days are ahead of us. And I truly, truly, truly believe that with Celebrate Recovery, our best days are ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And I've said that a lot of times for a lot of years. But as we're approaching our 30th anniversary, it's going to be some special times in the next couple of years. So this is the time, if you're thinking about joining Celebrate Recovery or if you're thinking about starting a Celebrate Recovery, do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I said it, do it.
Yeah. Now, in order for us to fulfill that commitment of answering more questions, you have to ask questions. And so far people have been saying hi, which I love. I love seeing people say hello. But we need some questions so that we can answer them. So make sure you ask some questions in the comments. And then we will answer as many of those as we can. And yeah.
We can answer all of them, but just not in time that we have.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I bet there's some questions that we couldn't answer.
I haven't found one yet. Yes, I'm sure there are.
One thing to kind of go back to what you were saying about starting a Celebrate Recovery. If you haven't yet started a Celebrate Recovery at your church and you're wondering where to begin, I'd invite you to come to one of our one-day training conferences. We've got a couple coming up. Our first 3 were in Houston in just a couple of weeks. We're in San Francisco area after that and Seattle area after that. So if you want to go to celebraterecovery.com, click on events, you can register for one of those. Can people still register for Houston?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you
Early bird just ended.
Okay, so early bird for Houston just ended, but we still do have registration open and available for Houston. So I would invite you to go there. And basically when you're there, if you haven't started a Celebrate Recovery up yet and you want to join us on the road for one of our training conferences, make sure you select the 7 Keys training conference. We have 2 going on at the same time. 7 Keys of Celebrate Recovery, which teaches you the foundational, how to start, grow, and maintain your Celebrate Recovery. And then the Advanced Leadership Training Guide is for people really that have had a Celebrate Recovery going for at least a year or so and have already attended the 7 Key training.
Yeah, and you will not be alone. We average about 750 to 1,000 people at these events.
Yep.
And so you're going to have a lot of people that you can talk to and share with too.
Yep, and we have many more events coming down the line in 2020, so keep your eyes posted or peeled for those, and we will remind you of them as they come up as well. Any questions yet? All right, great. We do have some questions.
All right.
Awesome.
Christina asks, how can I bring the idea of starting the CR at my church?
Great question. So if Christina wants to start a Celebrate Recovery, what does she do? How does she tell her church?
I think this is the easiest way I know. Now, sometimes it may not work, but as I would go to your pastor, or maybe the assistant pastor, and share a little bit about your heart to start Celebrate Recovery. And I have a feeling they've heard about it, but be ready to maybe get a couple of the leader's guide and the set of participant guides where you could leave them with them in case they haven't, and just tell them that you really, God's putting this on your heart in 2020, and that the church certainly is going to benefit from this, and it's going to grow, and it's going to have a lot of people free from the hurts, hang-ups, and habits. Johnny, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's great. I would just say, find the right people to talk to about it. Let them know you're passionate. And one thing I would say is, don't say you should start Celebrate Recovery. Say we should start Celebrate Recovery, and I would like to be a part of that. That doesn't mean you have to run it. It doesn't mean you end up having to be the person in charge of it, but that you want to be a part of it happening. I think that's a really important thing, because most Celebrate Recoveries are actually led by volunteers.
That's right. And the thing is that, it's something that you're going to want to do, but you're going to need the church's support to do it. You're going to need to get some leaders together, and it's all in the material.
Yep.
It'll help you get started.
Yeah.
And Johnny, something you just said about, you don't have to lead it. Well, when God gave me the vision almost 30 years ago for Celebrate Recovery, I wrote Pastor Rick Warren, a very short, concise, 13-page single-space letter outlining the vision that God gave me. And at the end, it said, my prayers are that you will find someone to run this for you. Within a week, I was in his office, and he said, you do it, John. And since then, it has been the joy of my life and my family's life, and over 5 million people have gone through it in 30,000 churches. It still just amazes me that God loves his people. He loves his people enough that he doesn't want them to be struggling with a hurt, hang-up, or habit. He wants them to be able to love him and others. That's enough preaching for a while. Another question.
Yeah, what else?
Yeah, first off, we have someone from the Philippines on here.
Awesome.
That's
Thanks for
Excellent.
joining us. Very cool.
And somebody's asking, what is something I can give someone who knows nothing about Celebrate Recovery?
Great. That's such a good question. So the best thing you can give them is your testimony. So I think if you're trying to figure out how to tell somebody about Celebrate Recovery, the best thing you can share is about how it's worked for you in your life. I think that is the number one thing. Then there are some resources we have available. One would be Pastor John's book, Life Healing Choices, or my book, The Road to Freedom. Both of those books are really designed for people anywhere in their recovery journey, from just learning about what Celebrate Recovery is to somebody who's applying the steps and principles to their lives. And so that would be something effective. And then I would just invite them to come with you to Celebrate Recovery. I think the best thing is your story. Here's how this worked for me, and invite them to come along.
Yep, and another good thing to get them is a very 129 pages, I think it is. It's your first steps to Celebrate Recovery. This will kind of explain for a newcomer what to expect, really, moment by moment in the Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery, the biggest thing that they need to know is Celebrate Recovery has been and always will be a Christ-centered program. And everything, and that is why Celebrate Recovery works, and that is why Celebrate Recovery grows.
Yeah. Yeah, great. What else?
Awesome. Okay, someone's asking, how should they transition from one ministry leader to another? The first one was there for 6 years.
So this could be a really delicate procedure. And so without knowing any of the whys, meaning why did the previous one leave and who, all that kind of stuff, because that can be really hard. What I would do is make sure you communicate, and then you communicate, and then you communicate. You keep talking about it. You let people know what's happening. You let them know how it's happening. You may not let them know why it's happening. That's none of their business. And so I would say, if no matter whether it's a good thing or a bad reason that somebody's transitioning, that's just sort of that's not a part of it that I would feel necessary to change. Now, we just did this at our home CR. I transitioned from the ministry leader to now Megan is our ministry leader here at the Lake Forest campus. And I've been telling people for a few weeks before she came. We didn't go for a long time, but we talked a few weeks before she came that someone new was coming. I met with the team, our TEAM, training coach, encouraging coaches, and assimilation coaches, and I let them know what was happening. And then when Megan got here, we just transitioned her into that point of place. Now, for a while, on Friday nights, people would come to me and ask me questions, and I would refer them to Megan. Now people come to Megan and ask her questions. And this is how it went when we transitioned from you being the ministry leader to me being the ministry leader. We did the same similar thing. Here's the thing. There are still people who've been around Celebrate Recovery at Saddleback for a long time who really want to hear from him. So if we're both there on a Friday night and they want to know an answer to something, they're not going to ask me. They're going to ask him. And there are people who've been there for a medium amount of time that they want to hear from me. So they may not ask Megan. They're going to ask me instead. The reason I say that is if that ministry leader is going to stay there, it's really important that everybody's on the same page. That the new ministry leader has the support of the former ministry leader if that person's still going to be around the ministry.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, if they leave in good terms, which hopefully they do and they will, you can get tired after 6 years.
Yeah.
You can need a break. But if they're still coming to Celebrate Recovery, if they still are walking the walk, celebrate their departure. Make it a true, let's just celebrate recovery. We try to celebrate everything we can along the way because recovery is tough. And so if they are going to transition into another role and just need some time off, celebrate that.
Yeah. And just know, by the way, if you're taking on the ministry leader role from somebody, even if they left under great situation and they're great and you're great, there's going to be people who are going to have a little bit of an issue with the new way things are done. That's natural. It's natural for people to have to look at, well, the old ministry leader did things this way, and now you're doing things this way, or I liked it better. Try to let those kind of slide off you. God has chosen you for this time to be in that position. And so try to give yourself or whoever that is that backup and support them if that's not you. Just be around them and just say, hey,
And and the thing that is sometimes when people are challenging you, it's hard to come back to them in love.
Yeah.
But that's what God tells us to do, is to love one another. And the more loving you can be to them, knowing that they may be hurt over the change or whatever. I mean, I'm just, we're taking a lot of...
Yeah, we don't know.
We're taking a lot of liberty with this question.
Yeah.
But, we are in this together, and we're going to love each other, we're going to love God. And if we do that, we win.
Yep. Great. What else?
Awesome. Kathy is wondering what she can expect at the summit.
Great. So for those of you who have never been to the summit before or are brand new to this at all, we've got 2 major training events. We've got our 1-day training conferences, which I just talked about a few minutes ago, and then we have our 3-day summits, and we've got 2 of them. One is in July. It's in Tennessee, and it's July 15th, 16th, and 17th. And then the second one is here in August in Lake Forest. It's August 5th, 6th, and 7th. And basically, there are 3 days that are jam-packed with training, with encouragement, with worship and humor and fun. And we have main session talks where a group of all of us are together. It's sold out the last 3 or 4 years. Each one, we get about 3,000 people at each event. And this year we've got all brand new main stage talks. We've got a bunch of brand new workshops, some new cool experiences that we're programming and getting ready for. And so what you can really expect is encouragement. You can expect to be filled up, and you can expect to be really tired on day 3 because it is a jam-packed 3 days. What else would you like to add to that?
Well, I probably shouldn't tell us this early, but we've come up with a theme for it already, and the theme for this year's summit is joy. And so we're going to celebrate joy, and we're going to talk about how we can maintain joy in our own lives and give joy to other people.
Yeah, so I would encourage you to check it out. It's not open for registration yet. It will be later on towards this spring, summer. We'll open it for registration, but keep checking celebraterecovery.com. We'll also talk about it here. We'll also talk about it on our social media profiles on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff as well. What else, Alexis?
Somebody's asking, what is the difference between isolation and alone time?
Well, that's good. What do you think? What's the difference?
Right. I think it comes down to a choice. Alone time, we all need. Jesus spent time alone, and he prayed, and the Bible's full of time of Jesus getting away, and we all need to do that. But that's a choice to get alone with God and really just kind of take an inventory of ourselves, just kind of make sure that we're on the right direction, or sometimes you get a new direction. And isolation is when I hear somebody saying isolation, it's almost synonymous with hiding.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of reasons for isolations, but God did not build us to be alone. God built us to be with other people. One another is used time after time after time in the Bible. And we need to be around people that love us, that like us, that will support us, that will trust us, and we can trust them.
Yeah, but I think what you said is so key. Isolation is often not about being alone. It's about hiding from other people. Mm-hmm. Isolation is almost like denial in some ways. And I think what happens is one way that isolation can affect us is that it separates us from other people. Mm-hmm. And so what we need to push against, and the antidote for isolation, is accountability. So to get around people who have the ability to ask you questions that you're honest with, that when you say, oh no, I'm great, they go, hold on a second, right? Because I think culturally we have this way of answering that question. How you doing? Great. And people keep moving. It's almost just nobody even stops to find out the response.
There's an old saying that's been around a long time. It's okay not to be okay.
Right.
And I think that we are built, bless you, that's okay. We are built, we need other people in our life. And I think it's, if it's really going to get into some deep discussion, we need men with men and women with women. And it's biblical and it works. And I don't know what I would do without my accountability team. Right. Because I talk to them a lot.
But if you're telling yourself things like no one will understand this if you shared them, or you'd get in trouble if you said this, or man, you just got to keep this part, anything like that, anything that's sort of that interior voice that's telling you not to share it and not be open with people, that's going to lead to isolation. And so what I would encourage you to do is to push against that. Step into accountability. It's uncomfortable. It's not always easy. And trust me, there are some times where I wish I didn't have so many accountability partners, because I'd like just to have a day where I get to go do whatever I want, right? But at the end of the day, that's not actually what I want. And so be careful there. Spend that time alone with God, but don't dwell in that, and don't allow that to become something that shields you from other people in your life. Yeah, great. Alexis, what else?
Somebody else is asking, what should we do if our step study is lasting more than 2 hours because it's a large group?
It's a great question. So most step studies are designed to last 2 hours. And basically what you're going to have to do is one of the guidelines, and the guidelines are part of the DNA, which keep a Celebrate Recovery safe. To call yourself a Celebrate Recovery, you have to adhere to the guidelines. You can find out all about this at our one days and our training conferences, but it's also on our website as well. And the DNA talks about the guidelines. There's 5 guidelines, and one of them is that we keep our sharing focused on our own thoughts and feelings, that we limit our sharing to 3 to 5 minutes. Now, if I've got 40 people in a group and we all share for 3 to 5 minutes, that's going to take way more than 2 hours just to get through 1 or 2 questions. So what you're going to have to do is, if you have a large group, there's a number of ways that you can handle this. Number 1 is to split that group up. Train new leaders, have half the group go with the new leaders, have half the group stay with the current leaders, and now you have 2 smaller groups. Another way to do it, if that's impossible, is to say instead of 3 to 5 minutes, we're going to take 1 to 2 minutes. You'll get through more questions that way. The way I like to do it is say, if we have too many men in a circle, we're not all going to answer every question. We're going to split the questions up. So the first 3 guys might answer question number 1, the next 3 might answer question 2, and so on and so forth. Now, if somebody has a burning desire, they really need to share something that's in one of those numbers, of course they can. But if they're doing the work ahead of time, meaning they're writing their answers out in their notebook or their workbook before they get there, they have a sponsor and accountability partners, they can share that with them in that setting. Because the step study, although sharing is so important, and it especially saying things out loud that we've never said before can be so important, the rest of the time I'm in step study, I'm listening. If I answer 3 questions at 5 minutes each, I'm only talking for 15 minutes of the 2 hours we're there. The rest of the time I'm listening to the other men in my group share, and I'm learning from them, and my recovery is being strengthened by their share. So there's a number of ways you can handle this. One thing I would encourage you to do is to reach out to your state rep. He or she has a volunteer who wants to help you grow and start your Celebrate Recovery ministry. They're at no charge. They want to They want to help you with these kinds of things, and they will be able to spend a lot of time with you as you go through these. To find your state rep, again, go to the Celebrate Recovery website. You'll be able to click on Find My State Rep there.
Or the Celebrate Recovery free app.
Yep.
And it's got the same thing. The 1 day is all listed, all the conferences, and you put in your zip code and it'll come up with your state rep for your area. We have over 250 state reps in the United States that are here to help you. They are volunteers. Please be kind to them. Please be nice to them. But if somebody ever asks you and comes up and says, you know, I'll help you start your Celebrate Recovery for $1,000. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. That's not what we do. What I would like you to do, though, is to call somebody at Celebrate Recovery or call your state rep and let them know that this happened, because we might just like to give them a call.
We'd like to get in touch with them.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, what else?
Jeanette is wondering how important is senior pastor support to start a Celebrate Recovery at her church.
Okay, I think it is extremely, extremely important. Now, that being said, if you don't have solid, strong senior pastor support, you still can start a Celebrate Recovery. It's just more difficult. A church that has senior pastor support will talk about Celebrate Recovery, will use Celebrate Recovery kind of illustrations in their messages. They will even use testimonies, and that if they're talking on a topic of anger, they might have someone from Celebrate Recovery come up and give a 7-minute testimony on how they dealt with anger and how Christ and Celebrate Recovery has helped them really handle that and keep that under control.
Yeah. I think that senior pastor support is important, but I think you may need to reframe what senior pastor support looks like in every church. So there may be some churches where senior pastor support is, and by the way, we'll keep talking about it this way because senior pastor support is actually one of the 7 keys that help support your Celebrate Recovery ministry. But senior pastor support isn't always they're going to do the sermons and they're going to have testimonies. Right. Sometimes senior pastor support looks like they said, listen, you can have this room and this time and we're going to talk about it in the notebook, or it's going to be on the website or something like that. The senior pastors often have so many things that they're trying to juggle at once that simply saying, guess what, we're going to carve out some time out of the schedule and some area out of our church, both which are limited resources, right? There's only so many rooms. There's only so much time. It doesn't matter how big your church is. There's only so many rooms and lots of people who want to use them. And if your pastor says this time and this place is designated for Celebrate Recovery, in my mind, that's senior pastor support. Definitely. Now, I'd love it if your senior pastor preached the Road to Recovery series and they were using testimonies and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's just important to kind of sometimes notice we have a time, we have a place, we're allowed to have Celebrate Recovery here, and that is senior pastor support. One thing I would encourage you to do is to support your senior pastor as well. So make sure your Celebrate Recovery is an active part of the regular church. It's not just something that's happening on Friday nights or Tuesday nights or whatever it is, but that if there's a church-wide event, your Celebrate Recovery is involved in that as well.
And serving.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is you can give your senior pastor, when you get a good testimony, send it to the senior pastor. You know, if he reads it, that's great. If not, that's okay too, but at least you're doing your part. Another is to allow him to, don't be afraid to invite him and truly be able to reach out. And once he sees what Celebrate Recovery in Christ is going to do in his church is amazing, because it's going to reduce the counseling load, and if he's doing a lot of the counseling, he's going to truly appreciate it.
Yep. Great. What else? I think we have time for a couple more.
Awesome. Okay, Sarah is asking, is it best practice to always start the year off with the denial lesson? We tend to get off schedule due to church events that interfere with our CR schedule.
Best practice is a great term for that, meaning it's a great idea if you can do it, but if you can't, no big deal either, because we know a lot of Celebrate Recoveries don't start in January. They're going to start in September, or they're going to start whatever, and you're always going to start with lesson 1, with principle 1, step 1, lesson 1. So if you're on that rotation and you can make it happen, awesome. If you get sidetracked a couple weeks, couple months, whatever happens, that's fine too. What I would encourage you to do, and I understand when there's a church-wide event, there's very little you can do. It happens to us as well. but really try to make sure that you're always your Celebrate Recovery.
One of the things that you want to make sure that everybody clearly understands is Celebrate Recovery is not a standalone thing. It is part of the church. It is part of the church. And the more it becomes a regular part of the church, the more people it's going to help. And it's going to be staff with their workload and more people in their church and bring in, it is a great outreach opportunity. So all this will come and make a lot more sense as you listen to these, but also as you get to go to some training.
Is our audio still working?
Let me check. It is on here.
Okay, great. Because we had a small glitch, so I just wanted to make sure. I think, they said it came back. That's good enough. All right, so I saw something happen on our camera, and then this is not a very high tech setup here.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of held together with Scotch tape and prayers. So, anyway, I think we have time for maybe one more question, and then we gotta go.
If our equipment holds.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm saying too. Yeah.
Alyssa is wondering, is it okay for my local CR group to advertise weekly meetings and times and places in the local newspaper?
It's a great idea. Yeah. So as far as letting people know when and where you're going to meet, do that wherever you can. So if you could do it on your website, if you could do it in a local paper, if you can do it if you can go to recovery houses and courthouses,
Local radio stations.
Yep. Lots of different places that you can advertise, and that's totally fine to let people know about it.
Some people say, are you doing marketing? Well, yeah, maybe, but also we're spreading the word of Christ and helping people with their hurts.
Yeah, we want people to come to Celebrate Recovery.
Yep.
And we want them to come. It's why we wear our Celebrate Recovery t-shirts out in public. It's why we have social media accounts. It's why we do this. It's not, we love this, that we get a chance to talk to you about Celebrate Recovery and hopefully answer some questions. But we do that so that hopefully your Celebrate Recovery is stronger, so more people will attend your Celebrate Recovery. We want more people to attend our Celebrate Recovery here at Saddleback. And it's not so we can brag and say we had this many people come, but that's more people who get to hear about Jesus. It's more people who get to have their lives changed, and then they're going to tell more people about Jesus. And Jesus isn't willing that any of us should perish. That's why he came for us.
Celebrate Recovery is about the lost sheep.
Yeah.
One person at a time.
Yeah. Let people know where, when, let them know if you're going to have dinner available, let them know if you have childcare available, let them know all of those things as often as possible. That's totally great idea. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. Before you go, if you're watching us on Facebook, if you want to give us a like and let people know that we do this every Friday night, that would go on your page so people would see it. So if you're not ready for people to know that you know about Celebrate Recovery, skip that step. If you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet, please like and subscribe and comment below any questions, and we'll try to have people who go answer those questions. And if you want to join us live, we do this every Friday night at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. Anything else to say before we go?
I do. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.